I'll bring in the rest of our reporters as we track the latest updates from the ground now. We've got Pranay Upadhyay from the Prime Minister's residence. We've got Shivani Sharma joining us from outside the ITC Maurya in Delhi. That's where Putin will be staying. It's a very short visit in the sense he's going to be here for just over 24 hours, but a visit that's extremely crucial, loaded with messaging. Many would say to the West, but beyond that also loaded with important messaging for India and Russia as well. So let's bring in all of our reporters on this broadcast. I'll bring in Shivani Sharma for a quick update and Pranay Upadhyay as well. Pranay, to you first. Right after President Putin touches down and we see an exchange between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, it's straight over to 7 Lok Kalyan Marg for a dinner meet.
Absolutely, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will not only be receiving President Vladimir Putin, he's also hosting a private dinner for President Vladimir Putin. This is not for the first time he's hosting a private dinner. During his earlier visits also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi fondly received President Vladimir Putin and he hosted a private dinner for him. And we have seen that, you know, in Sochi, when President Vladimir Putin hosted Prime Minister Modi, there has been a tradition of informal conversation between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi, and here also both the leaders will be taking forward that. Then this is a time for both these leaders to take without any protocol, without any the formal or official barriers or agenda, they can discuss a freewheeling conversation, and that is the thing which was also highlighted by President Vladimir Putin during India Today's interview. There he said that, you know, whenever we meet, we discuss a lot. We discuss about many things, about the geopolitics, about the domestic politics, about our own issues as well. So this is how we bond, and this is the 11th visit of President Vladimir Putin during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's term, and therefore you know that how long there has been association. If you see the history of engagement between Prime Minister Modi and President Vladimir Putin.
Apologies for interrupting, but we're just going to cut into what's happening at the Palam airport, where you can see all the preps are underway right now. There's going to be a formal guard of honor, which is usually the protocol to welcome a head of state, to welcome President Putin in this particular case. So we're also standing by for the first image of Prime Minister Modi, because he will be waiting there. The moment the plane comes into the runway and stops there, Prime Minister Modi will be waiting at the foot of the stairs as President Putin deboards. And that image, that moment when the two leaders meet, will speak volumes really of the India-Russia friendship and their story. Dr. Mohan Kumar, former diplomat, is also with us on this broadcast. Dr. Kumar, what do you make of the symbolism behind Prime Minister Modi being there at the Palam airport to personally receive President Putin? I can say that none of us really are surprised by the fact that the Prime Minister has chosen to do that.
So thank you very much for having me. I think it shows two things. One, my own recollection of Prime Minister Modi when he was the first leader to come to Paris to receive Macron and to see Macron, is that Prime Minister Modi takes a lot of effort to invest in the personal relationship and rapport that he establishes with foreign leaders. Secondly, he does not often come to the airport to receive foreign leaders or foreign presidents. So it is definitely an indication of the tremendous importance that he attaches to the relationship. I'll also have to say that geopolitically, Washington, China, and Europe, the capitals must all be watching this visit almost minute by minute. Geopolitical analysis of this visit, I think, will reach an all-time high. People will look at the body language, people will look at the substantive outcomes, and in the scheme of those things, the Prime Minister going personally to visit or to receive President Putin at a time when Russia is under pressure from the West has its own geopolitical signaling.
Very true. Gaurav, if I can bring you in on that as well. You know, in the interview that we will be airing at 9 p.m., we'll hear from President Putin himself on what really the messaging is to the West. And President Putin hasn't shied away from calling out the West on their hypocrisy, particularly on the attempts that they've made to kind of threaten India, arm twist India on the issue of oil.
He's called a spade a spade. India has done so very politely in the past. India has exposed America's double standards, and President Putin, in that exclusive interview to India Today, when he spoke to Anjana Om Kashyap and Geeta Mohan, he said America continues to take uranium and oil from Russia. It continues to take fertilizers from Russia. America is taking a lot from Russia, but does not want India to do the same. So he did expose the double standards of the West, and he said conversations need to happen with America on this. India is, of course, doing that. India has exposed the double standards of the United States very clearly. It's a fine balance. India wants this relationship with Russia. India also wants the relationship with the United States of America, with France, very important. And the images that you see, that's the Prime Minister's cavalcade that's now moving in to Palam technical area. The Tri-Services Guard of Honor all set. The Prime Minister's cavalcade getting there is very clearly an indication that anytime now the President Putin's aircraft will be touching down, and the Prime Minister then receives him. So that's a very, very big signal that India is sending out, not just to people in India and Russia, but to the West too.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Datta as well, our foreign policy expert on this broadcast as we track the latest updates anytime now. We're standing by for the first picture of President Putin in Delhi. And a reminder again to all of our viewers that at 9 p.m. we have that big world exclusive coming up. We've been getting non-stop calls, messages asking us if President Putin has spoken on Trump, if President Putin has spoken on tariff, if President Putin has spoken on the Ukraine war. I can confirm to everyone that he's very much spoken on each of those issues. The timing of this particular visit by President Putin to India, Dr. Datta, is also extremely crucial. You know, just a few days ago, you had Witkoff in Russia, and there too, very clear messaging that was sent across from Putin.
Yes, absolutely. It is very significant, and it is not only significant, it is going to be a turning point in geopolitics and in strategic relationship at the international level. The car diplomacy of tonight would create in a lot of flutter and jitter in United States of America as well as heartburns in Europe. Having said that, this visit is very significant, even though it is very short visit, but it is it is very tight with a lot of things happening. And my understanding is, like, first and foremost, the Relos agreement being ratified by the Duma, by the Russian parliament, that itself is a very significant thing, looking into the context of what is happening at Ukraine as well as in Russia and in Middle East and other parts of the world. Together with that, opening up of the North Arctic Ocean, which has become a very hot cake these days in relation to trade diplomacy and economic diplomacy because of the melting of the Arctic ice and India's entry into that, and Russia giving a free hand to India to, cruise into the waters of Arctic Ocean. That is again a clear message to the West. And of course, there would be discussions on S-500 as well as on Su-17 and advancement of the Sukhoi aircraft and many other things which would be coming in the kitty, together with a huge agreement in relation to technology and also in relation to enhancement of our economic ties and our trade ties and our bilateral relationship. So this would definitely raise in a lot of eyebrows in United States of America, in Europe, and of course China would also be jittery.
Okay.
Last year itself, just 30 seconds more, last year itself, United States of America had traded to almost around 24,000 million US dollars in terms of trade with Russia on uranium as well as on critical minerals and on other important components. So when US does that, and then United States of America threatening Bharat not to go for it, that itself is a hypocrisy of the highest order. And I think this visit is actually going to give in a clear-cut direction as well as a proper messaging to United States of America to stay away as to with whom India should trade and with whom India should maintain a
as
relationship.
someone who's heard that full 100-minute interview, there is a conversation also where my colleagues Geeta and Anjana actually asked President Putin on what he really makes of what Trump is doing. And Sandeep, while Putin also doesn't shy away in that interview from calling out the threats of tariffs and the attempts to arm twist India, when asked particularly about Trump as a president, about Trump as a leader, there you see Putin take a very careful stance as well.
Well, not surprising, Akshita, because Russia and the United States are in the middle of a very, very sensitive point in their relations where the United States is trying to get the war in Ukraine to come to an end. But the problem is that you have Europe, which does not want the fighting to end on Russian or American terms. So that's a major problem. And it's, of course, understandable why President Putin would talk about it very carefully, because it is an extremely sensitive moment right now for Russia. Everyone wants to see the war in Europe end. It's only a matter of, on whose terms they're ending and whether this fighting can actually stop. Otherwise, the war, it possibly enters its fifth year in 2026. So it's a very important interview, Akshita, and this is going to be watched. This interview is one of the most significant interviews that's been obtained by any Indian television channel. And at a moment like this in international relations, it's literally every single capital of consequence will be tuning in to see what President Putin has to say about not only the war in Europe, but also his ties with India and the other countries as well. So it's huge, huge signaling, geopolitical signaling, from the Kremlin, from the Russian Federation, and of course from President Putin himself. And we can't wait to hear what he has to say. And I really envy the fact that you were one of the first to listen to that whole interview, Akshita. But it is going to be the most anticipated interview given by any foreign leader, and one that's been scooped by India today, Akshita.
I agree with you, Sandeep. I consider myself extremely lucky that I was able to catch that interview.